Welcome to it, sports fans. 2019's first show. Happy New Year. It's halfway through the month. I don't think it's too soon or too late. It's fine. You get the gist. You get the sentiment. I can still say it. So welcome to it. Our very first show for the year. It is indeed the 14th of 2019. 14th of January. My goodness, where has the time gone? It's already halfway through the first month of the year. The FTB TV podcast is back. Available on iTunes and Podbean, of course. So you can just go and look for the FTB TV podcast. Not a long intro today, long show. It is the first one back. I'm going to talk a little bit today. It's going to be my half-year report, of course, on the Premier League. Generally the FA Cup fixture and then the one after that, which is where we are. We're at about 22 fixtures for most teams. City play tonight their 22nd fixture against Wolves. So we're about halfway, really. After the FA Cup is generally that fixture. Just after the FA Cup, I consider to be halfway. So half-year report on the top six. And then Malcom Marx winning the SA Rugby Player of the Year since the last time we spoke. I'll give you my opinion on that. And why I think SA Rugby has something to be worried about there. And then, of course, Hashim Amla and his current lack of form, and whether that is something that's sustainable for SA Cricket to hold on to. So let's get straight into it. Once again, FTB TV podcast, FTB TV podcast. You can catch that from the Bleachers TV podcast, iTunes, or indeed Podbean. Podbean, you can download it to iTunes, of course. If you're on there, you already know what you're doing. Let's get into it. We're going to talk about the half-term or half-year report for the English Premier League, the top six. So, you know when you get home, I don't know if you have these memories. School was so long ago for me. And I was less than scholarly. Let's just put it that way. But when you get home in South Africa, our winter holidays are in June. Right? In those holidays, you get home, and what I used to generally try and do is try and get home before either side of my parents being home. And then I just leave the report on the bedside table or on the bed or somewhere inconvenient for them to find. And then I'd go to my friend's house for like 5 or 6 days and just sleep over there. You know what I mean? That's the secret. Like, leave the report on the bed, leave a message with whoever's at home to say, hey, I'm going to so-and-so's house, I'm going to be sleeping over, we're going to be playing TV games. And their parents said it's cool. Usually for me, it was like 4 or 5 days because that's how long I needed my dad to look at the report and calm down. That was the reality. I was that guy. My sister was quite the opposite. So for her report, it never reduced my parents to tears. It never stressed anybody out. Straight A student. So quite the opposite. So the older my sister got, she's only 4 years younger than me, the worse it was for me. Because then it was really clear how badly I was doing when her report is straight A's. She's been straight A's forever. I don't think my parents have paid for school in forever. Younger sisters, I'm telling you. Right, so I'd leave my report and I'd go sleep in my friend's house for 5 years. And that is basically it, right? And the problem with that winter holiday, I think we all know, is that it's 6 weeks long. Right? So eventually you run out of underwear at your friend's house, kind of miss your own bed. You know how it is. And eventually you have to come home. But hopefully after 4 or 5 days, everyone's calmed down. And you got to come face the music. Eventually you run out of underwear. And you got to, you need clean underwear. I don't care. I know boys are gross, but you need clean underwear. And you got to come home and your mom or dad or family will do your washing for you. At school age, no one wants to do their own washing. I didn't want to anyway. So you got to come home, face the music, the report, what happened. I've never seen so many F's and D's on one report, blah, blah, blah. You're terrible. Whatever parents say. I don't know what parents say. I wasn't a very good listener. That hasn't changed much. So I'm going to give you my report on the top six in the English Premier League. And I'm going to get started in sixth. Man United, of course. You know what? I was going to give them an F. And then I thought, that's not good enough. They deserve a G. Listen, I said it before on the podcast. Mourinho should have been gone last season. All right. And what should have happened was Mourinho or Pogba should have at least gone this season at the beginning. They should have made it clear at the end of last season, they should have chosen one. All right. They should have said, we're going with Mourinho or we're going with Pogba. Now, that's not anybody else's fault but Ed Woodward and Manchester United Football Club. You cannot put that at the door of anyone but the football club. You had to, at the beginning of the season, say we are Team Pogba or we are Team Mourinho. That is it. Make the decision, go with it, back your guy. What happened? They didn't. It's been a shambles. I've given Man United a G. That's worse than an F. That's like 20%. Right? Ed Woodward, it's so clear to me that the club is fractured. Manchester United never used to release any news from the inside of the football club. I've heard Ed Woodward's name in this season, we're only halfway through the season, more than I heard David Gill's name over 10 years as chief executive. Ed Woodward seems to be the superstar. That is a problem. When an executive at a football club is the superstar and he's in the papers all the time, it's problems. When it's not all about the footballers, when it's not all about the manager, it's problems. And Ed Woodward has become synonymous with the front and back pages. Problem. I've heard his name more in 6 months than I heard David Gill's in a decade. Lindelof, Bailly, still disasters. One loves an injury. Bailly never available. When available, he's been shocking. Lindelof, clearly not good enough for Man United. I think he will be moved on. That is £70 million between the two of them. It has been a disaster project. To the point where Chris Smalling is still playing ahead of them when fit, and the once maligned Chris Smalling still there. And then, of course, the young man who they bought from Blackburn, Phil Jones, still playing ahead of Bailly when he returns. That lets you know that he is not the stuff. Lindelof and I think Bailly may very well be on their way. That is a recruitment problem. That is part of the problem. You get a G because you've recruited badly. That's a part of it. It's not all of it. It's a part of the story. So once again, Lindelof, Bailly loves an injury. Lindelof not good enough. Listen to me. Pogba, Lingard, Rashford can't get off social media. When things are going well, it's okay to be on social media. It's okay to do these things because we let you get away with more. In life, when things are going well, we let our partners and people around us get away with more. But what adults do, if these players think they're Manchester United level, you can see things aren't going well. Bring it in. Get off social media. Stop all that nonsense. Because it's time to get serious now. Man United are in a crisis. I mean, Jesse Lingard this year, the clearest sign for me that everything wasn't okay at Manchester United, launched his clothing brand on the week of the Liverpool game. I'll let that sink in. If you don't understand the significance of that, that is the biggest game in England, bar none. Man United Liverpool is the biggest game in England. Jesse Lingard thought it better than be at training or be recovering in the week of the Liverpool derby. Jesse Lingard was launching a clothing brand that lets you know where his mind is. That's a problem. Like, what on earth is going on there? Listen, Pogba, since, Pogba's post when Jose got fired told me everything else I needed to know. Man United could have controlled that situation better immediately. They should be watching all of their players. What are they doing? What are they saying? Especially in a sensitive moment like that, because you knew it was fractious. You knew the relationship was strained. Somebody should have been watching Pogba, especially all the guys he didn't get along with. And Pogba's social media savvy. He's everywhere. There's a lot of excuses coming out. But Man United should have handled that. Pogba should never have been able to have something like that on social media for 20 minutes. It tells me the club has no control. The club has no control. Let me tell you something. Man United are that good-looking girl in school who'd always get to school, flutter her eyes, and everyone would let her copy homework in the morning. And then when it comes exam time, like, she doesn't even know that Turkey isn't just food, it's also a country. And then she gets a G, like Man United. You know that girl? That's who Man United are. At number 6, a G for Man United. They've had a shocking season. Man United should be challenging for the title. They've spent incredible amounts of money, over 400 million over the last 2 years. Let that sink in. And you're 6th. A G. That's worse than an F. That's worse than an F. In fifth place, the Arsenal, the Gooners, of course, I've given them a C+. I've given them a C+. For them to be in fifth place, now that's about where they should be, all things considered. I mean, if you're an Arsenal fan and you haven't adjusted to the fact that your club's probably the sixth best in England. I mean, Man United are having their worst season probably ever, and they're going to probably finish above Arsenal. We've seen now Arsenal are doing their January things, and that is not a good sign. Arsenal are back at their January things, and that is not a good sign. So if you can't accept as an Arsenal fan, you are the sixth best footballing club in England. I can't help you. I don't know what to do with you. Listen, you cannot sign Granit Xhaka for 35 million in times of austerity for the club, and then have him as a regular, have Alex Iwobi as a regular, and then hope for more than what Emre is doing now. Quite frankly, Emre is performing miracles. Listen, I'll tell you where the plus comes from. It was just going to be a C, but the C plus is because Emre is finally seeing that Ozil is empty calories. I've said it for 2 seasons, right? He's not good enough to be that much of a liability without the ball. If you're Leo Messi, if you're Cristiano Ronaldo, if you're Kaká back in the day, if you're Zinedine Zidane, maybe I can tolerate that. If you're Ronaldinho, Mesut Ozil, no chance. He doesn't do enough with the ball. He doesn't drive the team enough. He doesn't take the game by the scruff of the neck enough to be that much of a liability without it. So that's a plus. That's where the plus comes from. Arsenal are doing, I'd say, as expected. And I'd say C plus because, Emre did go 22 unbeaten. I can't just ignore that. We've got to put that on the table, which has been sensational with this squad. I'll tell you what, Arsenal are that guy who broke up with their primary school girlfriend, right? But he's still got like all the presents she gave him, because now he's in high school. It's the first year in high school, all the photos, and he hasn't really been able to focus on his new surroundings. And he can't focus on schoolwork, but he's a smart guy, so he's passing in these troubled times, because he's still WhatsApping with Melissa, but not quite focused on the future. He's a smart guy. He gets a C+. The Gunners a C+. In fourth place, the Chelsea, the Blues, of course, of West London. For me, an F. An F, undoubtedly an F. This is the disaster club of the top 4. They got the manager appointment horribly, horribly wrong, and they had so much time. They knew in December last year that Conte was gone. It was clear already last year in December that this thing wasn't going to work out. Hazard was unhappy. They were all unhappy. Conte had to go. In fact, they probably knew from the beginning of the season. How they got the managerial appointment this wrong, I just don't know. Listen, the manager was sacked for being too defensive. This manager's worse. They score less goals with the same personnel. How's that possible? Conte was defensive, but in his first season, he also realized that his tactics were wrong for the personnel that he had. What did he do? 3-5-2 not working, 4-4-2 not working, 4-4-1-1 not working, 3-4-3 wins the title. This manager won't change. I've said it before on the podcast, he's too old, he won't change. It's not working. Surrey doesn't have plan B. It's 4-3-3 or bust. Listen, I think Roman Abramovich not being there, of course, he's having his own sort of diplomatic problems with the United Kingdom. That's its own story. But the lack of Roman Abramovich there, I think Chelsea, the pressure isn't there like it is when he's around. That's very clear for me. The club doesn't feel like that ruthless win-at-all-costs machine of the last 16 years. There's a softer feeling around Chelsea. Everyone's getting chances. People are getting away with a lot of things. A lot of the players doing things which they wouldn't get away with, I don't think, if Roman was around. I think the manager might have been fired if Roman was around and he was there day to day. Listen, the strike situation's been a problem for 2 seasons. That's not an excuse any longer to say we couldn't find a striker. It's been a problem for 2 seasons. Morata's back injuries started 2 seasons ago. He should have been replaced at the beginning of the season. We knew that he was an injury-prone guy. And like Fernando Torres, Morata's lost his pace, and that's a huge part of his game. That just makes him an ordinary striker. He could go and play for West Ham now and be fine for them. Still got the touch, he still got the movement, but that extra burst of pace that in his first season when Chelsea won the title he had is gone. His back is shot. So Chelsea haven't recruited, and they went and spent 50 million on Jorginho, who's a Fabregas without a killer pass. He's not better than Fabregas. They both can't run, and they're both pass masters. Except Jorginho can't give you a killer pass, and they just sold Fabregas. So the recruitment's been just outrageous. He's moved Conte, the best DM on earth, to buy a guy for 50 million who's not as good as Conte. And I think Conte is the second best DM in the world. Sorry. I'll tell you later this week who I think the best is. But I don't get it. I don't get the recruitment. I don't get what's happening. The Surrey ball is not working. Conte realized 4-4-2 doesn't work. And listen to me, any team with Eden Hazard that aren't challenging for the title, you've got a problem. It is an abject failure. If you've got Eden Hazard and you aren't in the top two, you failed. Tell you what, Chelsea are like. They're like that child, that child whose parents got divorced, right? And the stepdad isn't quite able to get a lid on things as the new guy in the house, and he can't really get order at home. Chelsea are that emotional wreck. They're an emotional wreck. They can't focus at school. Nothing matters. 2 Christmases, dad on the weekend, mom during the week, everyone's saying this about the other. It's a mess. Chelsea get an F. Listen, I think this current manager, I don't think Sarri finishes next season. Sarri ball's not working. He doesn't realize it. It doesn't matter who you buy. It's the Premier League. Up tempo or go. In third place, the Spurs. I gave the Spuds an A. I think this one's very simple. They don't have a single world-class player, and they're going to get a top 4 finish again. I think it's the 5th on the bounce. I must just check that. I think it's the 5th top 4 finish on the bounce without a world-class player. That's unbelievable. Not one world-class player in that Spurs squad. I don't care what you say. It's incredible what Pochettino's doing. Listen, considering the stadium shambles as well, it's incredible. It's unbelievable how solid Spurs have been, and they've not spent a penny this season. Remember, they have spent nothing this season. They've let people go, in fact. I'll tell you what Spurs are like. They're like the dream. I'm not a father, but I'd imagine they're like the dream daughter, right? It's like you never have to ask her to do her homework. She's in the netball A team. She's not provincial, but she's in the A team. She always cleans the dishes after supper. She helps everybody clean up. There's no mood swings as you'd get with a teenager, and she hasn't had a boyfriend and she's 17. It's like, it's a dream. Like, you don't have to worry about anything. It's a steady ship. And A for Spurs, congratulations to them. In second place, I've got Man City, and I've given them a D. Listen, they won the league by 20 points last season, and you added Riyad Mahrez, who's one of the greatest playmakers in the Premier League right now. And you got worse. I'm sorry that Pep doesn't get to get away with it just because he's Pep Guardiola. He chose to bring Mahrez in. If it's too many egos, too many starting type A-list players, that's Pep's fault. He brought him in. If Pep's going to get all the credit for winning, he's got to get all the fire when they're not winning, because he's made all of the decisions. I tell you what, Pep underestimated his need for a proper backup left back. Right? Mendy loves an injury, doesn't he? He is a sick note. Mendy is a sick note. It's a second major knee operation, and anybody who knows about a knee, never the same. And it's so crucial for Pep to maintain the width with the wing backs. And they try to go cheap and try to go Fabian Delph, and they've tried to play Laporte on the left. It's not quite the same. It doesn't give them the balance. It doesn't give them the width, and they aren't quite the threat that they are when Mendy is there. Listen, Delph is back up, no good. Pep is in his 3rd season now, and I'm afraid if he's having second season syndrome post the title now, it shouldn't be happening. Injuries aren't an excuse. I'm sorry, second season syndrome isn't an excuse. He's in his 3rd season. Can't tell me you won the title and it's difficult the next season. Pep's already got his style and mentality in the club. Injuries not an excuse. Mahrez and Bernardo Silva are top-notch replacements for David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne. I don't want to hear it. I do not want to hear it. Listen, maybe the Pep myth is getting exposed, because now he's actually going to have to coach his team to the title from here. Liverpool aren't going to make it easy. He's going to have to coach his team. Clearly things aren't what they were. Maybe he needs to lift that intensity again. Whatever Pep needs to do now, it's not going to be a stroke of luck. It's not going to be the genius of his players, because he's got all his players, they fit, and they've been fit all year. Now Pep's going to have to man management. Maybe change formation. Without a left back, maybe this isn't going to work. But Pep is going to have to find a coaching way. He's not going to be able to just inspire them to a win now. Liverpool are playing at an incredible level. I'll tell you what it is. I think Man City are the kid who moved from public school where he was an A student, right? But the teachers kind of grade on a curve at public schools. But at private schools, they're breeding CEOs, not middle management. Everyone wants to win at a private school. There is no grading on a curve. And I think Man City and Pep are finding that out now. Pep Guardiola is finding out what the Premier League is now. It's not Barcelona anymore where you can kind of cruise. If you're not on it, we don't care how good your players are. It'll cost you. Everybody wants to win in the English Premier League. Speaking of which, in first place, it is Liverpool, it is the Reds. I've given them an A++. Listen, I probably don't think they'll win the Premier League. I'm still backing Man City to catch them. But having said that, Klopp's plan is engaged and loaded. Listen, not a single world-class player in their squad either. Not one of the Liverpool players can be considered world-class. But Liverpool have been irresistible this season. I mean, listen, the top three is guaranteed since for the first time since 2013, 2014, of course, that Luis Suarez season. So they will be in the top three. That's quite awesome. They've spent a little bit of money, not as much as the other clubs. They haven't spent as much as United. They haven't spent anywhere near Man City. And look where they are. Tell you what, Liverpool lacking. They're probably lacking that ruthless strike. I love Bobby Firmino, but he's probably a better number 10 than he is an all-out number 9. And sometimes when it gets close, like against City, they needed someone. They needed an Aguero. They really needed somebody who will lead the line and just make it happen up front. Because when it's not happening for Salah and Mane, Liverpool are dead. Tell you who they are. Liverpool are that kid, who found a teacher who believes in them. The teacher who kind of sees somebody's extra smart, gives them extra homework, gives them more challenging work, maybe gives them the year above's work to do because that'll nourish and stimulate that child. I feel like Liverpool have found a teacher that kind of appreciates them. Because, we can clearly see the kid's been underachieving forever. Those teachers who really, really take it to the kids and realize this kid's been underachieving because he's been understimulated and hasn't had the love and attention that it deserves. I think Liverpool and Klopp have found teacher and student and an A++ for the Reds. That is my half-year report for the Premier League. Half-year report. So I'll run through it again. A G for Man United. That's worse than an F. They've had a shocker. A C+ for the Gunners. An F for Chelsea. An A for Spurs. A D for Man City. And an A++ for Liverpool. Speaking of awards and scholarly things, Malcom Marx recently named SA Rugby Player of the Year. Flabbergasted me. Jaw-dropping stuff. I'm not huge on Marx. Let me put it this way. Have you ever been to a party and you meet a couple, right? And you see the girl and you start talking to her, they came as a couple, you met them, but then people chat, there's mobility. And you talk to the girl, she's good looking, she's fit. You find out she's a doctor, she's a sailor as well, she plays the violin, so she seems to be it. She seems to have it together. Doctor, violin, cultural, a bit of the outdoors as a sailor. And then you see the boyfriend, overweight, like loud, drunk, swearing everywhere, profane behavior and language, and you think, what is going on here? What is actually going on here? How did she... And then someone tells you, oh, he just inherited his dad's oil company, and you're like, ew, I get it. She's a sailor and she'd like someone to buy her a boat, a yacht. She likes the finer things. Fair enough. And then it all comes together. It's like, okay, she tolerates that because the gifts are good enough. This was my feeling when I saw that Malcom Marx was SA Player of the Year. And let me explain to you what I mean. Like, I realized, and I was horrified by the fact that not only is Malcolm Marx, not only did he win SA Rugby Player of the Year, the most horrifying part is that he deserved it. That's the worst part. And if I'm not making sense, let me explain what I'm saying. You see, the problem with Malcolm Marx is that he wasn't the best hooker in South Africa, right? He got this award for being the best flanker. If you watch any SA Rugby, you realize that Malcolm Marx is actually out there playing flank. He's being rewarded for being the best flank South Africa has, not the best hooker. He can't throw in the line-out. Listen, against England, it was very clear for me. But I'd seen it already. I watch enough. I'm a Lions fan. I watch enough of the Lions games. Malcolm Marx can't throw in the line-out. And your fundamental skills will always get tested when things get tight. And against England, the pressure was on. England down to 14 men. He blundered. Fundamentally, Malcolm Marx is terribly inept as a hooker. He can't hook. He can't throw a 4-ball. He can't even throw a defensive line-out. It's a disaster. What should really worry South African fans is that 4 loose forwards are picked in every match 23. And the best at being a loose forward wears the number 2 jersey. Isn't that crazy? Skalkberger, Juan Smith, Rob Lowe. This is the country that's produced those people. Marx is clearly playing flank. But South African rugby loves that. Love that they can have 4 loosies on the field with him, right? Skills are sacrificed because he's got none. But as long as you got the brawn, and I find it so sad that it's still South African rugby is still about brawn over brains. Listen to me. If anybody watched the France game, Bonambi threw that unbelievable spiral to the 6, wrapped around, and of course the rest is history. And we remember that awesome celebration where the Springboks won in the last minute against France. There is no way Malcolm Marx is throwing that. And I don't have to guess. Against England, 14 men, no pressure, really early in the game. Marx missed 3 easy 4 balls, right? Over through 2, under through 1, with no pressure. They were down to 14 men and it was so early in the game. And that was everything I needed to see. The man is fundamentally flawed as a hooker. I'll tell you what this award should be called. It should be the We Couldn't Find Anyone Else award. It shouldn't be the SA Rugby Player of the Year. It should be We Couldn't Find Anyone Else award. Listen, Marx and Bok Rugby are the odd couple, right? Because Marx looks like a hooker. He wears the number 2. But Springbok Rugby actually wants a bruiser and not a hooker with skills. Because that's actually what you need now in rugby. Especially in Springbok Rugby. And here's the real problem, and it's becoming accentuated now. Aka van der Merwe and Bongi Mbonambi are clearly better at the hooker position. Especially considering it's Springbok Rugby. Where the bread and butter is the line-out. It is the scrum. It is the contact point. Where you need your hooker to be solid. He needs to be able to throw. I mean, we saw it with John Smith being picked over Bismarck du Plessis. We know Bismarck's a better rugby player. But John Smith could hit you 2, 4, 6, and the defensive line out. No problem. 9 out of 10. Bismarck wouldn't hit the earth if he fell from an airplane. He wouldn't hit the earth. He couldn't hit anything. But he was an unbelievable rugby player in hand and essentially an auxiliary loose forward, which is what Malcolm Marx is. So it makes no sense to me that a guy who is the 3rd best hooker in South Africa, right? So Marx is the 3rd best at his position in South Africa, but he's the best player in South Africa. That should really send alarm bells ringing around South African rugby, and if it doesn't, I don't know why people are getting paid. Like, what is going on here? Malcolm Marx, congratulations on winning the We Couldn't Find Anyone Else award. We Couldn't Find Anyone Else award for 2018 goes to Malcolm Marx. As a flanker, I think he's half decent. As a fetcher, he's half decent. As a hooker, he's abysmal. But Springbok Rugby has awarded him the best player in South African rugby. He's not even close to being the best hooker. Not even close. SA Rugby, be worried. Let's move on to the cricket. I went to go watch some Test cricket this summer. I live in Cape Town, South Africa. I went to go and watch the Pakistan game. Few things worried me. But throughout this week, I'll be talking a lot about Test cricket. Stay tuned. I'll tell you what's been worrying me for a while. Let me put it to you this way. Have you ever asked a girl out, right? And you're together for like 6 months, and you go to parties, you go to barbecues or braais, as we call them here in South Africa. And in South Africa we all socialize, and everyone chats, and it comes up, how long have you guys been going out? And you notice this person keeps telling people, we're not officially dating, I'm just figuring a few things out. And it's 6 months later, right? Most guys, because the correct thing to do is say, go figure things out on someone else's time, right? But most guys are idiots, because we are. We just think it's awesome that any woman will let us spend any sort of time around them, and they tolerate our stinking feet and our Pokemon addiction, and they cling on, and then guys cling on until she dumps you for someone better looking and richer. And then it's like, oh, I'm so unlucky, but no, she was dragging you along until she could figure it out, and you didn't see it. But guys are idiots. Any woman that'll let any guy hang around for a little bit, tolerate the smelly feet, and he's into Pokemon, and she can overlook that. He's 32 and into Pokemon, but whatever. That's okay. Girls overlook that, and guys are in. We're idiots. It's called sentiment. Time builds a bond, That's what time does. It builds a bond. Listen to me. SA Cricket has the worst record in transitioning I've ever seen. Whoever is in transition management at SA Cricket needs to be fired, and we need to get a refund. He should be kind of like how they expect the president of South Africa to pay the money back. Whoever is in transition management at SA Cricket should be fired, and I expect the money back for the last 20 years. Pay back the money. I'm dead serious. Listen to me. Hashim Amla has gone 24 innings without a test ton. 12 test matches. That's the equivalent of 12 test matches. 24 innings. No, I haven't started. 24 innings. 24 innings without a test ton, Hashim Amla. Listen to me. He went 19 innings in 2018 without 100. Listen to me. Hashim Amla hasn't gone a calendar year without 100 since 2005. That's 13 years ago. Why is there sentiment at the elite level of South African cricket? I just do not understand it. This is not the place for sentiment. Schoolboy cricket, Class A cricket, club cricket. That's the place for sentiment. That's the place for people to figure things out. Not the Proteas. It's a business. Listen to me. As soon as AB de Villiers started taking family sabbaticals and he took a break to make music, SA Cricket should have moved on. He took a break. You can spend your family. That's why you earn 10 million rand a year, dude. So you can sacrifice time with your family. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about your family and spending time with them. That's why you get paid 10 million rand a year. Otherwise, go work at a bank, dude. You go have every Sunday off. Spend all the time you want with your family. But you get paid 10 million a year. You get to be a hero, and you get to live a plush life, walking on a red carpet everywhere for a reason. I don't want to hear about your music ambitions. Do that after you retire. That's not our problem. AB de Villiers should have been let go 4 years ago. It was a debacle. But SA Cricket brought him back. Mark Boucher was 3 years past his prime by the time they moved on. It was way too long. It was horrendous how it was embarrassing. Listen, Alan Donald had to go for 30 runs at the World Cup. It was the ICC trophy. Brett Lee hit him for 30 off and over. Brett Lee hit him for 30 off and over. Yes, the bowler Brett Lee, Australian bowling great Brett Lee, hit Alan Donald for 30 off and over before SA Cricket was ready to go, oh, okay. White Lightning's maybe over the hill. Brett Lee launched him into the stands. I'll never forget that day, 30 off and over. Sean Pollock was bowling 121 Ks an hour. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget Mark Boucher standing up to Sean Pollock with the new ball in a test match. Eventually we yanked him. The keeper was standing up to Sean Pollock. He was bowling 121 k's an hour for a year and a half before we yanked him. This is me, the two great coaches of our time in sport that I think of, that have the greatest policy and continuity. In NFL, if you follow NFL, there shouldn't be a dynasty like the New England Patriots. They've been dominating for 19 years. It shouldn't happen in the NFL. There's such parity. They do everything for everyone to be equal financially. They work for parity in the NFL. But Bill Belichick dominated for the 19 years. Sir Alex Ferguson dominated the English Premier League like nobody else. 13 titles to his name. And I'll tell you why. They both had the same policy. You release the player a year too soon and not a year late. If you're going to age on someone else's watch. That's what Fergie's always done. That's what Belichick's always done. Listen to me. It's clear that Amla's done. It's clear to anyone who's watched cricket, anybody who loves cricket, he's done. And that's okay. Because he was never the most athletic. And he's even slower now. It was always about his hand-eye coordination. And as you age, I'm afraid that is the first thing to go. The body might be able to, but the mind isn't what... Even if your mind, right? Even if your mind is thinking it, the body can't quite execute it as quickly as it used to. And Amla was never athletic. That hand-eye is gone. Amla's getting trapped LBW by medium paces. That never used to happen. He's being beaten for pace by people that are bowling 135 k's an hour. It's getting sad. Listen, the selectors are paid to make hard decisions. You're not paid when Amla's averaging 90 in a year to keep him in the team or select him. That's not the hard part. The hard part of being a selector now is when you need to select the next guys. Now you actually need to earn your job. Because you're actually on... Most selectors are really on sabbatical for like 3-4 years when you find a prime team like the Proteas have got. Or have had for the last 3 years. You don't have to select a team then. But now it's time to do your job. And do your job. Be clinical. Amla's got to go. SA cricket has been awful in this regard over the last 2 decades. And I just don't get it. I don't get why there is sentiment. Boucher, Donald, A.B. de Villiers. They all stayed far too long. Pollock. Why don't they let these guys go? Amla's got to go. He's done. He's finished. And I love Hashim Amla. He's been sensational for a decade. But listen, if they are keeping him around just so he can make 10,000 runs, that would be a horrendous sentiment call. It would be purely sentimental. This Pakistan series needs to be Amla's last series. Elgar is there. Faf du Plessis is there. They can be the next guys. Let's struggle for a while, but we've got such great bowlers that our batsmen don't need to do much anyway. The Proteas batsmen don't do much anyway. They've been getting away with murder for 6-7 years. So the batting, that they can experiment with the youngsters and build around Elgar and Faf du Plessis. Amla, it's been a great career, but SA cricket, please, get it together. It's getting embarrassing now, watching him live, and you could see that the man is struggling, and he's not what he used to be. 24 innings without a test century. SA cricket, it's over. Get it together. Selectors, do your job. You get paid to do the hard job, not the easy job when guys are in form. This is what you get paid to do. Do your job. That is it for From the Bleachers today. I say this week. It is Monday, 14th of January. Remember, FTB TV podcast on iTunes or Podbean. Download it on Podbean. Give us a rating and let me know how horrendous you think my voice is, or if it's putting you to sleep. I'd love to know all of that. But actually, you can feed my ego. Just give it 5 stars everywhere. Give us a rating on iTunes. And that would be awesome. Tomorrow we talk a little bit more. Premier League, Harry Kane, is he world class? We'll talk about that this week. Is the ICC killing Test cricket? What do I think of Pakistan, South Africa? What do I think of Australia, India? India have gone and of course, won in Australia for the very first time in 71 years. What do I think of all of that? That's to come this week. Cannot wait for another episode, our second episode, of course, From the Bleachers will be tomorrow on the 15th of January. Looking forward to all of that. Sports fans, see you in the morning.